I've learned to pause before opening attachments from anyone with my last name. That hesitation, just a flicker, has become its own ritual. I hovered over the email without clicking, reading the subject line 3 times: family dinner. Seating plan final. No greeting. No note. Just the file. When I finally opened it, it looked exactly how I imagined. Centered text, serif font table numbers arranged in 2 neat columns. The kind of layout Mom always preferred: clean, symmetrical, orderly. Table 1, Gerald and Diane. Table 2, Haley and Ryan. Table 3, Pastor Hensley. Table 4, the Walkers. Table 5, Frank Whitmore and guest. On it went. I scrolled slowly, not down, back up, then back down. My name wasn't missing. It had never been entered. I waited just in case there was a second page. There wasn't. The document ended as they often do, with a footer in italics: final version. Do not modify. The cursor blinked in the reply box. I typed "should I" and then deleted the words. I backspaced all the way to silence, then opened my texts instead. Haley's message had already arrived. Mom thought you'd be too busy in Chicago anyway. Don't overthink it. I didn't respond. Somewhere in the document's white space, I imagined a tiny gap where I might have been. Not a full place setting, maybe just a folding chair at the end. Something temporary, collapsible. I closed the laptop and pushed it away gently, as if even the screen could bruise. There was no official announcement. No email disinviting me. No call, just absence arranged like furniture around the people who mattered. Later that day I found the sticky note I'd used last week to list possible gift ideas for their anniversary: a framed photograph from their wedding day, a custom engraved clock, a gift certificate to the lakeside grill, where the dinner was now confirmed to take place. The ink had smudged slightly. My handwriting looked like someone else's. I left the note on the counter. I didn't throw it away, just let it curl at the edges. Mom once told me, without looking up from the dishwasher, "You always make things heavier than they are." I remember thinking maybe they were already heavy. I was just the one holding them. The following morning, a coworker stopped by my desk to ask if I was free Friday evening. Her team was doing trivia night downtown. I'd love to, but I might have family stuff, I said before, catching myself. She smiled. Let me know. You don't always have to default to them, you know. I do know. But habits tend to wear the same shoes every day. You forget where they started walking. When I was 10, I got strep throat the week of Haley's piano recital. I stayed home from school, quarantined to my room, throat raw and voice gone. I listened through the walls as Mom practiced the clapping rhythm with her. On the night of the recital, I watched the recording from the couch, a warm compress on my neck. Haley got 3 bouquets. I got a pat on the head and a lukewarm cup of ginger tea. Mom had said, "Don't make it about you." I wasn't. I never did. In the group chat that week, Haley shared a screenshot of the restaurant's menu captioned, "Can't wait to try the sea bass." Nobody replied. Then 2 hours later, Dad sent a thumbs up emoji. I stared at the message thread for longer than I should have, watching for the dots that never appeared, the blankness between words, the spaces where anything might have been said. When I turned 27, they gave me a portable charger. Haley got a spa weekend. I wrapped the charger in tissue paper afterward and tucked it in the back of my desk drawer. It still works, but I don't use it. There's a coffee mug in the office kitchen that has my name on it. Not because it was gifted to me, because I bought it. I labeled it with a Sharpie so no one else would take it. A small claim in a shared space. On mornings like this, I noticed the label fading just slightly more. At lunch, I sat with Emily. She asked if I was going home for the anniversary weekend. I haven't decided, I said. You weren't listed, were you? It wasn't a question. I shook my head. Do you want to come to my parents' thing instead, low-key? Potato salad. Bad wine. Maybe. She opened her soda can carefully, like she didn't want to startle the air between us. You don't have to earn your place, Claire. I didn't answer. I stirred my soup twice, then let the spoon rest in the bowl. The last time I visited home, Haley had been telling a story about a client who cried during a house tour. Mom laughed and said, that's what happens when you care about people. Then she added, not like that sterile marketing stuff Claire does. I think I smiled, or nodded, or neither. On the drive back to the city that night, I stopped at a gas station and bought a bag of sour gummies. I ate them slowly, letting each one dissolve before chewing. The red ones always reminded me of the lip gloss Haley wore when she was 16, the one she wasn't allowed to have but wore anyway. She never got in trouble for things, just labeled spirited. I, on the other hand, was too much or not enough depending on the year. Once I told Dad I'd won a small marketing award, local nothing major. He blinked twice and asked, Did you tell your sister? She just got featured in the real estate journal. That was a year ago. I haven't told them much since. There's an index card taped to the inside of my closet. It says, be where you're valued, not where you're tolerated. I wrote it after a therapy session I didn't tell anyone about. Sometimes I reread it while zipping up my coat. When I got home that night, the email was still open on my laptop. I moved it to trash, then emptied the trash, then went to settings and turned off email notifications from Diane's account. I didn't block her. I just didn't want her to arrive unannounced. I used to believe that compromise was a form of care. Not the loud kind, not the version that arrives with applause or captions, the quieter version. Choosing the smaller slice of cake so someone else could have the bigger one, folding a sweater and placing it back on the store shelf because someone else said, you already have one in blue. Letting someone else go first, or speak louder or interrupt without consequence. When we were children, Haley always wanted the end piece of the lasagna, the corner with the extra crust. I never said I liked it too. I just learned to prefer the middle. During our first school play, I auditioned for the role of the narrator. Haley didn't want a part, but changed her mind at the last minute. She got the narrator. I became Girl with Basket. 2 lines, both forgettable. I memorized them anyway. Dad said, she just fits better on stage. You're more of a behind-the-scenes person anyway. Then he handed me a clipboard, as if that made it official. At Thanksgiving last year, I drove 6 hours through sleet and stop-and-go traffic to make it on time. I arrived 5 minutes early, changed shirts in the car, and helped set the table before anyone asked. Haley walked in 2 hours later, wearing boots with wet soles and makeup that hadn't been blended. Mom clapped and said, there she is. Our star finally made it. No one noticed I had folded all the napkins into leaf shapes. During her wedding, I took the week off. I organized the welcome bags, coordinated airport pickups, typed the itinerary, laminated it. On the day of the rehearsal dinner, I realized my name tag had been left off the family table. The coordinator looked confused. Are you part of the bridal party? Haley looked over. Just seat her wherever. She doesn't mind. I nodded. The place card said, Claire Whitmore, Table 7. I didn't ask who else was at Table 7 until I arrived. A childhood neighbor, a cousin's ex-girlfriend, the violinist. When I got promoted 6 months ago, I sent a short message to the family group chat. Exciting news, just promoted to senior account manager today. It was a sentence I rewrote 3 times to make sure it didn't sound like bragging. No one responded for 24 hours. Then Mom replied, "Make sure you don't let it stress you out. You're not as tough as you think." The message came with a smiley face. I didn't reply, but I remember noticing my knuckles had gone white on the edge of the desk. Emily Harper texted me separately. "I'm so proud of you. Seriously, that's huge." Her words sat softer than they should have, like a couch in a room too empty. A few days later, Haley posted a selfie with a client and a caption that read, "Helping families find dream homes beats office politics any day." She never tagged me. She didn't have to. Growing up, I learned to fill the gaps left behind. When Haley forgot to bring home permission slips, I reminded Mom to check her backpack. When she cried after getting caught skipping class, I brought her hot chocolate and put a note under her door that read, "They'll calm down soon." Once she scratched my favorite CD, the one I used to listen to on repeat during high school. She shrugged. "Why do you care? It's just noise." I taped the case shut with Scotch tape and put it back on the shelf. The crack still runs across track 5. I remember Dad turning to me during a family barbecue once, gesturing toward the grill. "Go help your uncle. Haley needs to rest. She's had a rough semester. That semester, she'd dropped 2 classes and missed 3 weeks of work. That summer, I pulled weeds in the backyard, cleaned the gutters, and repainted the fence. At the end of August, Mom handed Haley an envelope with cash. Just so you're not stressed starting the new year." When I asked about help with student loan interest that same week, Dad shook his head. "You're the planner. We expect better from you." He was right. I didn't ask again. At Christmas, I used to arrive with baked goods and labeled tins of the kind that stack. Peppermint bark, snickerdoodles, gingerbread. Haley would show up with a scarf she didn't wrap and a gift receipt tucked inside. Mom always squealed like it was gold. "This is exactly what I needed," she'd say, holding it up to her neck. "You know me so well." She never said that about the handmade calendar I gave her, filled with photos from our childhood and careful notes about appointments. She put it on the fridge, then moved it behind the cereal boxes 2 weeks later. There's a photo in their hallway where we're both in matching dresses. I remember that day. I had a fever. I told Mom I didn't feel well, and she said, "Just smile through it. We can't cancel now." In the photo, Haley's hair is curled. Mine is damp. I spent years making myself smaller, not out of shame, not even to please, just to fit. I used to believe that love was something you proved, not something you were allowed to receive by default, that it had to be earned with silence, softened reactions, and calendars that didn't collide with anyone else's plans. There's a sweatshirt in my closet that Haley left at my place one weekend. She wore it when she had a breakup and stayed with me for 3 days drinking wine and watching reruns. She left without folding the blankets or saying thank you. I never returned the sweatshirt. I didn't wear it either. I just kept it at the back of a drawer with the sleeves crossed, like arms folded in. Sometimes I catch myself defending them without words, a reflex, like when someone at work says, "That's not okay," and I say nothing but mentally sort through possible reasons. Maybe they were tired, distracted under pressure. I've written whole scripts in their favor that they never asked for. Once, after a particularly strained Easter, Mom told me in the kitchen, "You don't have to be the peacekeeper, Claire, but you could at least stop making things harder." I remember looking down at the counter, at the sponge in my hand still dripping. I had been washing dishes while Haley scrolled on her phone. I don't think anyone remembers the things I didn't say. The times I bit my tongue so hard it ached the next day. The times I said it's fine even when I didn't mean it, just to move the moment forward. People like to praise survival when it's loud, when it's shiny and triumphant. No one writes poems about those who endured by folding napkins and fading into group photos. But I was there. I always showed up. I just never made noise about it. Some memories stay not because they mattered, but because no one else noticed them at all. I still have the postcard from my 18th birthday, a scenic view of the Rockies. No message, no name. Just love you, written in Mom's handwriting, but without a signature. Haley's birthday that same year had a surprise party with a sparkler cake and a printed banner that said, "Our brightest light turns 20. She cried when the candles wouldn't stay lit. Dad lit them again. No one mentioned the wind. No one asked if I got their card. I didn't bring it up. At Echo Lake, the summer I turned 14, I was the one holding the camera. The disposable kind you had to wind. There's an album at home titled Family Days, Summer with Tuba. There's one of Haley skipping rocks. One of Mom and Dad in matching sweatshirts. One where Haley pretends to push me in. That one didn't make the album. On the drive home, I remember asking if we could stop for ice cream. Dad said we were behind schedule. 5 minutes later, we pulled over for Haley to get a new pair of sunglasses. She left hers at the lake, Mom said. I held mine in my lap. The left arm was bent. No one noticed. The first time I published an article in a small industry newsletter, I sent the link to Dad. It was a practical piece market segmentation in non-profit campaigns. I'd worked on it during evenings after work, revising it 3 times before submission. His response came hours later. That's nice. Haley just got featured in a real estate brochure, no punctuation, no follow-up. I forwarded the message to Emily without comments. She replied, I read your piece. It was excellent. I read her reply 3 times before closing the thread. There's a drawer in my nightstand with clipped pieces from my career. I don't display them. Not because they're not enough, but because I've never been asked to. Mom once told a neighbor while I was standing in the kitchen, Haley's always had the sparkle. Claire's the steady one. Then she turned to me and said, there's value in being quiet. I nodded. I folded the dish towel into thirds and placed it over the sink edge. At Haley's graduation dinner, the waitress came over with a dessert plate that read, Congratulations in chocolate script. Haley laughed and said, she remembered. I remembered that Mom had called ahead to arrange it. I remembered, because the year I graduated, the restaurant had run out of the dessert I ordered. The server said, we usually save one for graduates, but someone came early. Mom shrugged. No big deal. I told her I didn't want dessert anyway. That lie tasted like paper. There's a coat I used to wear to family events. Grey wool, slightly oversized with buttons that never sat right. Haley borrowed it once, then gave it back saying, You like these boxy styles, right? I didn't reply. I folded it carefully and hung it back in the closet. Eventually, I stopped wearing it. I didn't get a new one. I just stopped arriving early enough to need a coat. One Christmas, I wrapped a book for Dad, historical non-fiction, about post-war economics. He looked at it and said, You always give me homework. Haley gave him a novelty mug that said, None one, Dad in red letters. He took it to work. I found the book months later under the end table. The bookmark was still on page 3. I used to write birthday cards with long, thoughtful notes. Haley signed hers, Love you so much with 2 hearts. Mine said things like, Thank you for the music you played while I studied, or I've always admired your steadiness. Mom once turned to me after reading one and said, You think too much. Just say you love someone and let that be enough. After that, I stopped writing inside the cards. I bought blank ones and wrote my name. There was a time I tried to explain my job to Haley. I described a campaign we ran for a small arts non-profit, how we tested language to increase donor engagement. She looked confused. So you write emails? Sometimes I still hear that sentence in my head when I present to clients. Last spring during a family dinner, Pastor Hensley turned to me and asked, "What have you been working on these days?" I opened my mouth, but Haley spoke over me. "She's always swamped, too busy for family vacations." Everyone laughed. I sipped my water. Later that night, I cleaned the table while they played cards in the next room. The knife I dried had a notch in the handle, one I remember from years ago. It was the same knife I used to cut to Haley's birthday cake when I was 12. She had insisted I serve. I remember the plastic tiara on her head, the way she said, "Don't mess it up. It's from the good bakery." I didn't mess it up. I just didn't get a slice. There's a towel in the guest bathroom at home with my initials embroidered on it. Claire E. Whitmore. Mom had it made when I started college. Haley's version hangs on the master bath rack. Hers says, "Just Haley." When I asked why mine was in the guest room, Mom replied, "We put things where they're needed." Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be needed. The church bulletin last year listed the Whitmore family under the Easter luncheon donors. I had mailed a check. Haley had brought cupcakes. Only one of us was thanked from the pulpit. I once heard Mom tell someone on the phone, "Haley's always been the heartbeat of our home." Claire's more cerebral. That pause lives rent-free in my ribcage. I don't remember the last time someone looked at me like I belonged in the picture they were taking. I used to lean in just slightly when group photos were taken, just enough to be framed, never enough to be the center. Now I step aside before the flash. I keep a box of old film photos under my bed. Some have dates on this back in blue pen. Most are labeled Haley's birthday or trip to Vermont. I don't write on mine anymore, not because I don't remember, because no one else will ask. Some things don't shatter, they just go quiet in your hands. I opened Instagram by habit, not curiosity. The feed refreshed automatically. Third photo from the top, white buildings, blue sea, 3 faces I recognized instantly. Haley wore oversized sunglasses and a sundress I'd never seen. Mom had her hand on Haley's shoulder. Dad stood just behind them, arm resting across both their backs. The caption read, "Nothing but real family on this journey." Family. First. Blessed. I stared at it long enough for the screen to dim. There was no mention of a trip, no email, no forwarded itinerary, no offhand comment from anyone about Europe. Just this announced to everyone, except me. A coffee stain had spread across the corner of a document on my desk. I'd spilled it when I set my mug down too fast. I didn't clean it. I just let the paper absorb it, in silence. Later, I opened my banking app. I wasn't planning to. My fingers moved ahead of my thoughts. The balance on my emergency fund didn't look familiar. I blinked and reloaded the page. $87.46. It had been over 10,000. I tapped into the history, charges over the past week, airline tickets, a resort in Santorini, a boat excursion, foreign transaction fees. The timestamp on the flight booking matched the night Haley had texted me, "Don't overthink it." I called the bank. The representative confirmed a password change had been requested weeks ago. The person had failed 2 security questions, but somehow the reset still went through. She read me the confirmation email address. It ended in @whitmorehome.com. There wasn't a pause between her voice and my breath. Just a long, empty stretch. I sent the screenshots to myself, printed the transaction log, saved the Instagram photo. I folded everything once, then again. then slipped it into the back of a notebook I kept for grocery lists. An hour later, my phone vibrated. A text from Haley. One sentence. He won't notice it's barely active anyway. Then another. Dad says to book the sunset dinner. Already done. I replied I noticed. The typing dots appeared. Paused. Disappeared. That was the LA. There was no apology. No confusion. No follow-up. Just silence. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with a charge alert, $850 from a Greek transportation service. I stared at it the way someone might look at a broken window, not in fear, just with the quiet understanding that something once whole no longer was. At work, Tyler leaned across our cubicle divide. You look pale. You okay? I turned the screen toward him. My family's in Greece, I said. He read the caption, then the charge list. He didn't blink. This isn't miscommunication. This is theft. I didn't correct him. That night, I placed my emergency fund binder into a drawer I hadn't used in months, the kind with a stiff slide. I didn't label it. Mom had once told me during a conversation I barely remember, "You always act like things are permanent." It was in response to me asking whether we'd ever take another trip together. I had been 19. She'd waved it off life moves. You adjust. I don't think I adjusted. I just kept sitting still until the room rearranged itself around me. There was a voicemail from Dad the next morning. Whatever this is, Claire, it's dramatic. You're overreacting. It's just a vacation. Then a second one. Don't bring strangers into this. Family doesn't involve outsiders. Then from Mom. This is humiliating. We had to speak to the manager. Do you know what that's like, Claire? In a foreign country. Their voices sounded sharp. Not cracked, just rehearsed. Haley's came last. You always make yourself the victim. That money was sitting there. You weren't using it. I didn't respond. I called the fraud department again. I gave them the exact charges, the dates, the screenshot of the text. I said I hadn't given permission, that it was accessed through manipulation, not mistake. The agent asked, "Do you know the person who may have accessed your account?" Yes. She paused. Relationship, immediate, family. Her tone didn't shift, just her typing. I listened to the clicks. There's a hairline crack on the corner of my phone case. It wasn't there before this week. I run my thumb across it sometimes, like it might remind me that things break quietly, too. Dad used to say, "You don't need as much as you think you do." It was his response to most requests. Maybe that's what they assumed again, that I wouldn't need the money, that I wouldn't ask questions, that I'd adjust. They were right. For years I had adjusted until the shape of me disappeared inside theirs. But this time, the lines didn't blur. They cut. I used to believe that the worst thing was being forgotten. It's not. It's being remembered only when you're useful. I used to think silence meant agreement. Now I know it can mean departure. The screen stayed on longer than usual before I let it dim. I didn't close the app. I didn't scroll away. I let the image stay the same way one might let a wound breathe before covering it. Their faces looked rested, tanned, even, the kind of ease that doesn't come from rest but from rehearsal. I didn't call. I didn't text. I copied the transaction log and exported it to PDF. I renamed the file 3 times before saving it. I chose a folder I rarely open between tax records and old resumes. I labeled it June. There's a dish in my cupboard I've never used. A gift from Haley the year I moved to Chicago. Ceramic, light blue, scalloped edges. She'd said it looked like something you'd like quiet and functional. I keep it in the back of the cabinet behind the glass bowls. That week, I opened it and placed the printed statement inside. A page, folded once then again. Nothing else. Zachary sent a message just after 9. You disappeared from social media. Just checking in. I typed deleted, then typed again. I'm okay. Just resetting some things. He didn't ask for more. The dots never came back. I appreciated that. I changed every password twice, removed access to shared accounts, unsubscribed from old mailing lists. I paused my automatic transfers and cancelled 3 subscriptions I hadn't used in months. I deleted saved cards from shopping apps. There was no fury behind it, just method. The email from the fraud department asked for supporting documentation. I sent screenshots of the message from Haley and the transaction timestamps. I signed the affidavit with a borrowed pen that skipped twice. I didn't redo it. The pen was one I'd taken from the family desk drawer years ago. Whitmore Realty printed in fading gold. I remember Dad tossing it onto the dining table once and saying, "Take it if you need it." I've got extras. He had said it like I was a burden. I hadn't asked. There's a voicemail from Mom saved on my phone that I haven't listened to. The preview shows the first few words, Claire. I just don't understand. That was enough. I stopped reading the group chat. The last message was a meme from Haley. Something about some people never outgrow victim mode. No one responded. No one needed to. I archived it. The next morning, I opened a drawer looking for an old charger and found a photo I hadn't meant to keep. Haley and me at a fall festival. I was holding her wrist, helping her balance on a hay bale. She was laughing. I looked like I was bracing for something. I placed it face down and slid it under the spare phone cases. At the office, someone left a post-it on my desk with a smiley face and lunch written in pen. I folded it once and placed it behind my monitor. I didn't throw it away. Tyler walked by with coffee and paused. Still off your game? I nodded. Family? I nodded again. He leaned in slightly. You don't have to explain. Just don't disappear from yourself. I don't think he meant it to stay with me, but it did. Later that day, I found myself rereading the line item that said, Celestial Resort. $5. $400. I Googled the hotel. The image that loaded looked like a postcard, white linens, stone terraces, infinity pool. There's a note from Dad on an old birthday card I still have in a box. It says, You're practical. That's your gift. You don't need all the extra. I wonder what changed. Maybe nothing. Maybe it's always been like this, me paying for the extras I wasn't invited to receive. I called the bank and confirmed the fraud case was moving forward. The woman on the phone asked, Do you know who had access to this account? Yes. And are they still in contact with you? No. Would you like to block communication from them? Yes. The words were simple. They didn't feel small. They didn't feel large either. Just correct. There's a hairline tear on my winter coat near the inside lining. I noticed it last week when I took it to the dry cleaner. The seamstress offered to patch it. I told her no. It's not visible. It just catches slightly when I reach for my wallet. Mom once told me during a tense Thanksgiving prep, you hold on to things too tightly. Letting go is strength. She had been talking about a gravy boat. I had offered to carry it. She took it instead. I remember standing there, hands still open. Now, I let the whole shelf go. I haven't posted anything online since that day. I took down 3 old photos, archived 2 albums. I left one up a foggy shot of Lake Michigan taken from a pier. There's no one in it, Just water, a sliver of horizon, and something unreadable in the sky. It's the only thing that still feels like mine. The night before the case was officially flagged, I made tea and forgot to drink it. The mug left a faint circle on the table. I didn't wipe it. I let it dry there as proof of presence. Silence isn't always surrender. Sometimes it's the only door that doesn't slam. Freedom doesn't arrive like a door opening. It settles quiet and uneven like dust in a room you didn't realize was yours. I moved without telling anyone. No announcement, no boxes labeled with destination, just a stack of brown paper bags, a used tape roll, and a pair of scissors that clicked once before jamming. I didn't fix them. I adjusted. The new place doesn't have a view. The windows face another building, beige siding a rusted fire escape, someone's forgotten plant with leaves curled inwards. But it's mine. The Wi-Fi password is written on a post-it no one else has seen. I haven't decorated. There are no picture frames, no welcome mat, just a desk, a bed, and a cupboard with mismatched mugs. One of them is chipped at the rim. I drink from it anyway. On the first morning, I boiled water in a scratched kettle and poured it over a single tea bag. I didn't check my phone. The mug left a faint ring on the windowsill. I let it stay. There's a hum in this apartment I can't identify. Not the fridge, not the pipes, just a low, continuous presence. It reminds me I'm the only one here, that nothing will be said unless I say it. At work, I arrive on time. I leave when the clock says so. I keep a notebook for grocery lists and another for financial tracking. In this one, I wrote the phrase non-essential and drew a line beneath it. The page is still blank under that. I haven't added anyone to my emergency contact form. HR asked during the move. I said I'd get back to them. The form is still in my drawer, unsigned. Emily met me for coffee a week later. She ordered chai and asked if I wanted anything sweet. I shook my head. When she slid into the booth, she tilted her head and looked at me the way you look at something that has been rearranged. You look lighter. I didn't respond. I stirred my drink twice, then set the spoon down parallel to the cup. Across the cafe, someone laughed too loudly. The barista dropped a spoon. The noise didn't touch me. I hadn't realized how much of my stillness used to be defense. There's a jacket hanging by the door I haven't worn in months. It still smells faintly like last winter, something synthetic and too clean. I keep meaning to donate it, but never do. It's the kind of thing someone once called appropriate. I've stopped checking family group chats. The notifications are off. I don't mute them. I just leave them unopened. It's not that I don't care what's being said. I already know how the sentences end. Claire always did take things personally. She never liked being told the truth. We're not the bad guys here. There's a mirror in the hallway of this building that tilts slightly to the left. Every time I pass it, I see my shoulder first. It makes me look like I'm leaning even when I'm not. I still fold laundry the same way, still match socks even when they don't quite belong, still sweep twice in the same spot out of habit. But no one watches now. No one comments that I missed a corner or always do it your own way. I forgot to water the plant I bought on move-in day. It's wilting in the window. I haven't replaced it. I don't know if I will. Some nights I lie on the floor, not out of grief, not even reflection, just because the silence feels more even down there. I listen to the creaks above and think about how many people are walking across their lives without ever looking down. Mom used to say, "You always make everything so inward." She said it like diagnosis. I remember how the air felt when she said it. Dry, but scented with lemon cleaner. There's a grocery store a block from my building. The cashier has started recognizing me. He calls me ma'am. I don't correct him. I don't correct anyone anymore. The last time I spoke to Zachary, he asked if I'd moved. I told him, just needed a reset. He nodded, said something about new chapters. I watched his face for the flicker of judgment. It never came. He offered to help. I declined. You always carry more than you let on. That stayed with me, not because it was kind, but because it didn't come with an expectation to hand anything over. I haven't told anyone my new address, not because I'm hiding, because no one asked in a way that made it feel like it was for me, not just for inventory. I bought a new mug last weekend, dark green, no words, no logo, just smooth glaze and weight in the palm. It fits my hand. Some people only notice you're gone when the picture looks uneven. I opened the email while waiting for my tea to steep. The subject line read, Holiday card planning. Quick group shot. The sender was Diane. No greeting. Just a short block of text formatted like a calendar invite that hadn't been confirmed. We're organizing a family photo update for church and the holiday card. It would be good if you could come just for the group shot. Just for the group shot. I let the words sit there as the tea bag sank deeper into the water. The paper tag floated for a second, then sank too. A second message arrived 12 minutes later. Haley. Her tone always left fingerprints even in pixels. Don't make this about you again. It's just one picture. I didn't respond. The tea over-steeped. I drank it anyway. That night I opened Facebook. Not to post, just to see. Diane had shared a photo at a restaurant I used to know by its lighting, too yellow near the entrance, too cold near the back. Haley was in the center of the frame, leaning against Diane's shoulder. Gerald sat slightly turned away like he was already done with the moment before it had finished. The caption read, So proud of our family, even when some drift away. We stay strong. There were 3 comments before I could look away. Haley, wouldn't be complete without you. Mom. A neighbor. Beautiful, where's Claire these days? Gerald family's only real when everyone shows up. I scrolled back up and studied Diane's wording again. Even when some drift away. Not leave. Not choose peace. Drift. Like something unmoored. Passive. Accidental. They hadn't come back. They were just adjusting the frame. I remembered a framed picture from years ago that used to hang above the hallway light switch. A family shot from a trip to Yosemite. My face was partially blocked by glare. No one replaced it. They just moved the frame a little left so the light wouldn't catch. I disappeared into a shadow they didn't bother naming. I didn't delete the message from Diane. I archived it. Like an invoice never paid. There's a coat in my closet I haven't worn since last winter. It still has a note in the pocket, a shopping list written in Diane's handwriting with underlines and question marks. She used to plan dinners like battle strategies. I never got to pick the menu. I just peeled carrots and tried not to look like I was waiting to be included. The email had asked for one thing. My face. Not my presence. Not my name. Just the part of me that could be aligned into symmetry, balanced on the edge of someone else's narrative. I haven't posted anything in months, not since the last time Haley tagged me in a group photo where my name wasn't mentioned. Just thankful for everyone who showed up. The last person who used my full name in a sentence without sounding rehearsed was Emily. In a voicemail about her new apartment, she'd said, Claire, you'd love the way the light hits the corner bookshelf in the morning. I didn't tell her I've stopped reading fiction. Not out of disinterest. just that I've been trying to make sense of the non-fiction chapters that keep revising themselves without my consent. After the Facebook post, I removed the app from my phone. Not logged out. Removed, as if my screen deserved better than recycled attempts at performative wholeness. Gerald once told me, no one likes a martyr. It was during a Thanksgiving cleanup when I offered to stay behind and wash the dishes. Haley had left early. Diane had claimed a headache. I stood in silence, holding a sponge and a plate with gravy hardened at the edges. His voice had no warmth, only finality. No one likes a martyr. And yet, now, I was the missing piece in a story built for display. A necessary silence they could shape into any silhouette they wanted. There's a small calendar on my fridge held up by a magnet that says, "You can start over every Monday." I haven't replaced it, even though it's from 2021. The dates are wrong, but the message hasn't expired. The last photo I took of myself was accidental. Front camera flipped open as I reached for a charger. I looked tired, unsmiling, but real. There was no one in the background. I printed it at a drugstore kiosk. It sits inside a drawer now, paper slightly bent at the corners. Not framed, not captioned, just kept. I've stopped pausing before touching things that used to belong to them. The olive green folder with my old budget notes, the chipped blue mug from the office retreat. I once pretended to enjoy the scarf my mother gave me with the tag still on. They're all still here, but I no longer trace them like artifacts. I place them. I let them stay without giving them purpose. David called me into the conference room during Tuesday's stand-up. He pointed at the draft on the screen. This is the kind of initiative we've been lacking. I nodded, not because I needed the approval, but because it no longer frightened me. I printed the proposal that evening, placed it in a new folder, and wrote my own name on the label. Not initials, not code. Just me. I no longer check the family group chat. I think they've stopped adding me to new ones. When I updated my number last month, I didn't send it to anyone outside work, and the 2 neighbors who'd asked kindly. Susan from 4B slipped a card under my door last weekend, an invitation to her book club. I showed up with a store-bought cake and listened more than I spoke. The chair I picked was slightly wobbly, but I didn't change it. I stayed in it the whole evening. Zachary noticed the new bookshelf. I'd assembled it wrong twice before getting the pegs aligned. "You're building your life like someone who knows where she's going." He didn't touch the books. He just stood there, one hand on the kitchen chair as if not interrupting was his way of seeing me. The drawer next to my bed holds a notebook I started 2 Saturdays ago. Just lists. Grocery items, questions for my accountant, reminders for subscriptions I finally cancelled. A line that reads, "Don't lend what you can't give." I underlined it once, then once more. Emily texted about a get-together next week. I answered, "Maybe. If I'm up for people." No smiley, no follow-up. She replied, "Fair." I didn't save the conversation. My new teapot whistles differently, a shorter, sharper sound than the one from the house on Willow Street. That one always gurgled before releasing steam like it couldn't decide whether to speak. This one doesn't hesitate. On my desk sits a glass paperweight shaped like a stone. It's the only thing I took from the old office. Not the plaques, not the nameplate. Just that one weight I always used to hold down contracts while everyone else talked over me. Now it presses down the corners of handwritten notes, ideas I don't say aloud yet. Not because I'm afraid, but because silence has become a kind of clarity. Haley emailed. The subject line read, "Family update. Holiday logistics. No greeting." Just a list of names and a note about Diane's new centerpiece. I didn't open the attachment. I moved the email to a folder called Unreturned, not deleted, not archived, just placed somewhere where its weight doesn't shift mine. At the market last Thursday, I ran into a former colleague. She tilted her head and said, "You're different." I smiled, adjusted the bag on my shoulder, and let her think whatever she needed to think. The apartment still smells like paint in the corners. The shelf over the sink leans slightly left. I haven't fixed it yet. Maybe I won't. The slant reminds me that things hold, even when not centered. I passed the old coffee shop near our old house last Sunday. They changed the window sign. It now reads, "We've missed you. Come in." I walked by without looking in. The stack of letters from my mother is in a box under the bed. I haven't opened the last 3. The handwriting is the same. The absence of apology still perfectly spaced between the lines. In one of them, I remember she wrote, "We only do what we think is best for the family." I had folded that letter twice then, once more, until it was a square too thick for the envelope. This morning I filed for an investment account, in my name only. The banker asked if I wanted to add a beneficiary. I said, "Not at this time. The form didn't ask for justification. The plant by the window has grown without direction, curling toward light in angles I didn't expect. I haven't trimmed it. I just turn the pot every other day and let it choose again." Zachary brought a bottle of white wine over last weekend. He said, "You don't have to pour if you're not in the mood." I opened sparkling water instead. He didn't ask again. We sat across from each other, the clinking of glasses replaced by the faint hum of the fridge and the sound of forks on ceramic. The ceramic plate had a chip I hadn't noticed before, just a soft crack running along the rim. I ran my finger along it while he spoke about a podcast he liked. I didn't hear most of it. I was watching how the plate stayed whole even with the break. I didn't set it aside. I sleep on one side of the bed now. The other side remains made, not out of habit, but respect for quiet. I've stopped checking notifications before bed. Some nights I leave the phone in the drawer and listen for nothing. That sound used to scare me. Now it settles. There's a print on the wall I found at a thrift shop. Just a pale line drawing of a figure standing near water, not facing the shore. No title. No frame. Just quietly placed. I think it looks like how I feel now, recognizable, but only from a distance. I used to measure progress in approval. Now I mark it in silence, how long it lasts before I feel the need to explain something. I haven't explained anything in a while. I keep a single ring in the dish by the sink. Not worn, just present. Its metal dulled the way things soften with time, but still hold form. I don't wear it, but I don't put it away either. Some things aren't meant to return. Some things just belong exactly where you've left them, unspoken, unpolished, undeniably yours. Some names don't feel like yours until you stop hearing them. I printed every page with deliberate slowness. One by one, the statements curled slightly at the edges from the warmth of the machine. The transfer logs came first, then the screenshots, then the calendar invites I was never part of, annotated in Haley's handwriting, circled with her usual loopy arrows. The file sat beside me for a full hour before I touched it again. I didn't staple it. I didn't mark anything. I only folded the letter once and slipped it inside. On June 4th, $10,400 was transferred from my emergency fund to cover airfare and lodging for a trip I was not informed of. This letter serves as record I no longer authorize any access. You are not entitled to my accounts, my time, or my presence. No preamble, no closing line, No name at the bottom. I placed the envelope in the back of my drawer behind the warranty receipts and the binder of tax forms. It didn't belong in the outgoing tray. Some things don't need delivery to have weight. The week after I walked into Doyle and Penfield's second floor, no elevator music. Catherine Doyle shook my hand without asking how I'd been. Her office smelled like faint citrus and faint ink. I appreciated both. She slid a form across the table without explanation. Do you need to list next of kin? I placed the pen down. I'll leave that blank. She nodded once, and we continued. The legal request took 7 minutes. After years of explanations, approvals, account-sharing signatures over dinner tables and just-in-case agreements, 7 minutes felt right. Not short, not rushed, just proportionate. When I signed the affidavit, I paused for half a breath before writing my new name. Claire Ellis. No hesitation. Just the right weight in the hand. I didn't tell anyone, not because I feared the reaction there wasn't anyone left who had the right to react. I just didn't feel the need to make it a statement. The following day, I went through old mail. One letter had my former name printed in heavy ink on the envelope, C. Whitmore. I placed it beside the folder marked unreturned. It looked like it belonged there. I started noticing how often people ask for names as a reflex. Could you spell that for me, Ellis? E-L-L-I-S. No stutter, no follow-up. When the DMV clerk handed me the updated license, she looked at the photo. You look like you already knew. I placed the card in my wallet behind the Metro Pass and the punch card from the bakery down the block. I didn't need to look at it again. Zachary noticed the change on the mailbox. He ran his finger across the new label. You sure I handed him the screwdriver I used to swap the plates? Didn't feel like asking permission. He nodded. Didn't smile. At the grocery store, the cashier glanced at the name on the debit card. Is Ellis your husband's name? It's mine. No one else needed more. I took down the last photo from the hallway shelf that included the house in Vermont. The frame left a dust outline on the wall. I didn't clean it immediately. I wanted to see how long it would stay. The voice message from Haley arrived on Tuesday. I heard. That's dramatic. Then silence. 5 seconds. 7. You know, Mom says this is your way of punishing us. I didn't save the voicemail. I didn't delete it, either. I let it exist in the same place I let moldy apples sit long enough to confirm decay, not long enough to spread. Gerald emailed me the following morning. The subject line, disappointed. The body names matter. Legacy matters. If you can't see that, don't expect to be part of it. I didn't respond. I archived the message and unsubscribed from the family newsletter. I think it used to have recipes. One of my old cousins commented under a Facebook post from Diane. She's dead to us now. I hadn't died. I had only renamed what survived. There's a ring I no longer wear. It sits next to the one I kept. They don't touch. One belonged to someone who believed love meant access. The other sterling, faintly tarnished remains mine because no one ever tried to take it. That night, I updated my emergency contact. Not to a person, to my attorney. I filled in the blank, in case of emergency contact. Catherine Doyle, legal representative. No phone call needed, just paperwork, binding in its own quiet way. I folded the old family Christmas letter into fourths and dropped it in the shredder. The sound wasn't loud, just slow, consistent. 1 paragraph at a time. The coat from my mother still hangs in the back of the closet. I haven't worn it. I haven't donated it either. There's a button missing. I think that's why I haven't touched it. It's unfinished in a way that feels honest. At the coffee shop, the barista remembered my name. Claire Ellis. You're always the same order. I nodded. Consistency isn't about staying the same. It's about showing up as who you are, without rehearsal. I've stopped checking what time it is when I walk past mirrors. I used to do that glance, then pretend it wasn't to check alignment. Now, I let the reflection be whatever it is. There's a thin envelope in my drawer. It has no stamp, no address, just my handwriting in black ink, nothing ornate. You are not entitled to my accounts, my time, or my presence. I don't need to mail it. I already live like it was received. I no longer wait for my phone to light up. The screen stays still now. There are no pings, no vibrations tucked beneath silence. I stopped checking around the time I stopped expecting. The group chat was muted, then archived, then gone. It wasn't a dramatic deletion, just a thumb pressed longer than usual. A swipe, a breath that didn't try to mean anything. This morning, I brewed tea in a chipped mug I once tried to throw away. The glaze has a fine crack down one side, like something that held pressure too long. I still pour gently. The calendar on the fridge is flipped to a month no one else in my family uses anymore. I don't cross off the days. I underline them. A small line, quiet but chosen. At 9:12 a.m., I opened the financial notebook. There it was, my emergency fund restored and slightly ahead. I didn't highlight the number or circle it. I just looked at it long enough for the ink to dry again in my mind. There's a photo frame on the corner of the table. I hadn't opened that box in weeks. It's the one I kept marked for later in blue marker, though I didn't know what later meant. Inside was a photo I hadn't seen in decades. I was 8, standing at the edge of a lake. No one stood beside me. My hands were folded too formally for a child. My collar sat uneven, but my head was lifted, eyes straight. I didn't look lost. I looked like I was waiting for no one. Zachary came by a little after 10. He knocked once, then again softer. I opened the door and he held up a paper bag like a peace offering. Didn't know if you'd already eaten. Brought the kind you like burnt on the edges. He unpacked the waffles without asking, setting them neatly onto the plates we always forget to match. His hands didn't hover. He found the forks himself. There's a seminar next weekend, he said while pouring tea. Financial literacy, but the kind that actually makes sense. I nodded. You should go. You've got that look again, the spreadsheet one. He didn't ask if I was okay. He never does. He just pours slowly, never letting the tea spill past the rim. I watched the steam rise between us, curling in the space we didn't need to fill. Later, he noticed the frame. Was this always here? It was in the box under the chair. You look sturdy. Even then. I didn't respond. I folded the napkin in half, then again. I guess some people are born knowing when not to ask for applause. He tapped the table twice softly and leaned back. You still hear from them? His voice didn't lean. No. He didn't follow up. Didn't say, maybe they'll come around or... You should reach out. Instead, he looked out the window and added, It's quieter now, isn't it? I didn't answer. The spoon in my teacup had stopped moving. He stayed for another half hour. No music, no questions. The kind of presence that doesn't announce itself. After he left, I walked back to the table. I looked again at the little girl near the lake. I didn't remember the moment the picture was taken, but I remembered the sandals I wore that day, how the strap dug into my skin, and I didn't tell anyone. I could still feel the shape of those marks. The mail slot clicked around noon. A flyer slid through from the building's Tenants Association summer picnic sign-up sheet, Ice Cream Social. I pinned it on the board, not because I planned to go, but because I could choose. I opened the drawer by the fridge and pulled out the envelope I never mailed. The letter was still inside. The crease down the middle had begun to soften. The ink hadn't smudged. I didn't reread it. I didn't tear it up either. I slid it back into place. On the shelf above the sink is a small jar with dried rosemary from Susan's windowsill. She'd given it to me with a joke about warding off bad luck. I didn't believe in that, but I kept it anyway. Every few days I twist the lid open and breathe in. Not because I'm superstitious, but because it reminds me of something clean, something not borrowed. At 3:17 p.m., I got a message from Haley. I didn't open it. The preview read, "Just wondering if I swiped left." Archive. No noise. I folded the dish towel in thirds, pressed the hem flat, and hung it on the hook beside the oven. The quiet stayed still. There's a notebook in my drawer, labeled Next. It's not filled yet. A few pages have lists, some crossed off, some not. I don't rush it. I write when something feels earned. Not everything has to be tracked. I make dinner for one, not out of habit, but by decision. I plate the food nicely. I use real silverware. I light the small candle Zachary gave me last winter, the one shaped like a pine cone. It burns unevenly, but I trim the wick each time. I used to think healing would look like a homecoming. It doesn't. It looks like leftovers in a clean container. A book that doesn't need to be quoted. A photo no longer framed in apology. My name is Claire Ellis now. No one asked why I changed it. No one called to ask if I'd gone too far. No one needed to. On Sundays, I let the phone stay face down. Not in defiance, but in peace. The absence doesn't press anymore. It simply rests. And so do I.